From the moment Ethan Hayes sat at the small, candlelit corner table of Rosewood Cafe, he had a strange feeling that tonight would change something in him. He just didn't know whether it would heal him or break him further. The rain outside painted watery shadows across the glass, and the soft jazz in the background felt almost too romantic for a man who hadn't been on a date in 4 years. He had rehearsed everything: how he would smile, how he would introduce himself, and how he would pretend his heart wasn't still bruised from the last woman who walked out of it. Tonight was supposed to be the fresh start his friends insisted he needed, but as minutes passed and the seat across from him remained empty, Ethan felt that familiar sting of rejection return like an old, unwanted visitor. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unexpected stories, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly keeps stories like this alive for more hearts to feel. Ethan glanced at his watch. 7:10 p.m. She was already 10 minutes late. Normally he wouldn't mind, but this was a blind date carefully arranged by his colleague Mia, who swore this woman was perfect for him. He didn't expect perfection. He just wished not to be forgotten. His fingers tapped gently on the table, nervous and unsure. The waitress walked by with a sympathetic smile, as if silently saying, "Don't worry, maybe she'll still come." The cafe, with its warm string lights dangling overhead and the aroma of baked bread swirling in the air, felt like the kind of place where love stories found roots and heartbreaks found healing. But Ethan's heart whispered that maybe he didn't deserve either. 30 minutes passed. Ethan kept checking the door each time its bell chimed, but it was always someone else: a couple holding hands, a family with giggling kids, an elderly pair sharing a slice of cheesecake. The contrast made the emptiness of the seat in front of him feel heavier. He thought of ordering something to look less abandoned, but even that felt like admitting defeat. He considered walking out, erasing the night, pretending he never hoped. He didn't want to be stood up again. Once in his 20 seconds was humiliating, but now, in his early 30 seconds, after surviving betrayal, loneliness, and therapy, this felt personal. This felt like life testing him again. At 7:39 p.m., Ethan finally reached for the check, ready to leave. But as he did, the door swung open with a sudden gust of cold air. A woman rushed in, drenched from the rain, breathing heavily, clutching a small wrapped box against her chest as though it contained her heartbeat. Her hair, dark brown and dripping, framed a face flushed from rushing. She scanned the room with anxious eyes until they landed on him. Ethan paused. The world seemed to slow as she approached his table. She gently placed her hand on the back of the empty chair, catching her breath. Her voice trembled, not with nervousness about the date, but with something deeper. She began apologizing, hurried, emotional, almost guilty, about being late. Ethan expected an excuse, something shallow or rehearsed, but the rawness in her eyes made him sit back down. She introduced herself as Grace Turner, and for a moment, Ethan forgot how to breathe, not because she was stunning, though she was, but because her eyes carried a storm he instantly recognized. It was the same storm he had lived through for years. Grace explained that her reason for being late wasn't traffic, wasn't forgetfulness, and wasn't carelessness. She had come directly from somewhere else, somewhere emotionally heavy. Ethan could sense that her words were tiptoeing around something fragile. She apologized again, not just for being late, but for almost canceling altogether because a part of her didn't feel deserving of meeting someone new. Ethan's heart softened instantly. They hadn't exchanged more than 50 words, yet he felt the weight she carried, and he wanted to help her set it down. As they began talking, the world outside continued to pour rain, but inside, the conversation flowed gently, unexpectedly warm. Grace told him she was a children's book illustrator, passionate about art and kindness. Ethan shared that he worked as a physical therapist, helping people find strength after life knocked them down. That made her smile faintly. A soft, grateful smile, as if she needed someone like him in her orbit. Someone who knew how to help things heal. Their food went untouched at first as they found themselves opening up more than strangers usually would. Ethan confessed that after his fiancée broke off their engagement 4 years ago without explanation, he never felt whole again. Grace listened intently, and then, after a long pause, she revealed the truth that shook Ethan to silence. The reason she was late, she admitted, was because she had just come from the memorial bench at the park, dedicated to her younger sister who passed away last year. Today was her sister's birthday. Every year before she died, her sister would tell her, "Grace, you deserve someone who loves you the way I do, softly, patiently, completely." Grace said she didn't know if she had the right to seek happiness anymore when someone she loved so deeply was gone. Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. His throat tightened as he watched tears form in her eyes but never fall. Instead, she inhaled shakily and said she nearly canceled this date because she felt guilty smiling or moving forward with her life. But something told her to come tonight, even if late. Something whispered to her heart that maybe this night mattered. Listening, Ethan felt something inside him crack, not painfully but like a frozen river beginning to thaw. They weren't two strangers seeking romance. They were two souls quietly holding their broken edges, afraid to bleed on someone new. It wasn't attraction that filled the space between them. It was recognition. The universe had placed two shattered hearts across from each other in a cafe designed for healing. Hours passed unnoticed until the cafe dimmed its lights, signaling closing time. Ethan walked Grace outside, sharing his umbrella, and for the first time in years he felt the rain not as sadness, but as something cleansing. Grace hugged herself for warmth, and Ethan resisted the urge to wrap his jacket around her. Something about her made him cautious, not of pain, but of rushing something delicate. They stood beneath the awning, watching the rain blur the city lights into soft watercolor streaks. Grace looked up at him with an expression that was part apology, part gratitude, and part fear. Fear of letting someone in again. She thanked him for staying, for not giving up on her even when she was late. Ethan simply replied that sometimes the things worth waiting for arrive later than expected, because they're meant to, at the right time. Grace's eyes glistened before she smiled softly and whispered, "Good night." When Ethan got home, he didn't collapse into bed feeling rejected or lonely like he expected. Instead, he found himself sitting at his kitchen table replaying the evening over and over, realizing he hadn't just met someone, he had met someone who understood silence, grief, effort, and courage. Someone who wasn't perfect, but real. The next morning, Ethan found a message from Grace. It wasn't a casual text, it was vulnerable. She thanked him again and confessed how terrified she was that her emotional truth might have ruined everything before it even began. She said that if he didn't want to see her again, she understood. His reply was immediate, gentle but firm. He wanted to see her again. He wanted to understand her, not avoid her scars. He wanted to walk with her at whatever pace didn't hurt. Grace responded with a voice note, her tone fragile but hopeful, saying she would like that but needed slow steps. So they walked slowly. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Their dates weren't typical. They involved long walks at parks, quiet bookstores, volunteering at animal shelters, and sometimes sitting on that memorial bench where Grace's sister's name was carved. And instead of running from her grief, Ethan sat with her in it, never trying to erase it, just honoring it. Grace did the same for him. She never forced him to talk about his ex-fiancée, but when he did, she listened without judgment. Their love did not bloom with fireworks. It bloomed like sunrise, soft, patient, gradually filling the dark with light. They laughed again, real laughter that reached their eyes. They healed, not by forgetting the past, but by making space for hope alongside it. Nearly a year later, on a warm evening, Ethan took Grace back to the cafe where it all began. She wore the same necklace she wore that first night, but her smile was brighter now, not weighed down by guilt. Ethan held a small box in his hands, the same way Grace once held one on their first meeting. Inside was a delicate bracelet with a tiny engraved charm that read, "For the days you chose to stay." He told her that she was never late that night. She arrived exactly when life needed her to. Grace's voice broke as she admitted that if Ethan had left that night, she might have never believed in second chances again. They embraced, not because it was a romantic moment, but because their hearts finally rested, safe, understood, home. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. More people need to hear stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that love can arrive even after pain. Before you go, write in the comments, everyone deserves a second chance at love. Their story teaches one simple truth. Sometimes, the people worth loving won't come on time. They arrive late, with scars, tears, and trembling hearts, but they arrive exactly when you need them. And that's what makes them worth the wait.